Hi Todd, how are you doing? I've got you queued up here. I've got your magazine queued up here, and I just want to take a quick look at it. I kind of want to talk about this a little bit. I want to address this. Um, you know, I, okay. Here's the thing. I can understand what has been successful for you, and I can understand what works for you in different situations, and I can understand and appreciate that you've been a designer for over 20 years, and you've designed billboards and everything else, and that's awesome, and that's great. And whatever works for you, if it's working, by all means stick with it. But when I'm teaching typography, I'm teaching a ground level basic foundation. Okay, so it's kind of like teaching how to build the foundation of a house. There's only really a couple of ways to do it. So what you do on top of that foundation, that's pretty much up to you moving forward from this class. For this class, there's specific things that I need to see, and those things have been decided by the department, um, as a good cross section of things that would need to be considered, as takeaways from this class typographically. Now, I talk about layout as an as an added bonus, um, because I believe that you shouldn't be corralled into studying typography. I mean, let's study typography, but let's do it in the context of studying good design, and that's why I set this assignment up as such. Okay, so you've got a lot of these things. The typography is not the focal point. Design and imagery are. And I'm going to disagree with that until the cows come home. And I'm going to tell you, I know probably 15 heads and design principals, who will will agree with that, 100%. Um, it's an issue. Over design is a serious issue, for students coming out of design school. Um, and like I said, if it's working for you, by all means. But when we prepare students for moving into a studio setting, stuff like this isn't going to fly. You're going to have, rules to work within, and they're clearly going to be expressed like things like the critiques that I've been leaving you. So I'm not trying to pick on you. It kind of feels like you're trying to defend some of your decisions here. And like I said, I mean, I'm teaching typography. I don't know what works for you. Go for it, man. I still need to teach typography though. So, all right. So moving forward. Um, oh, one more thing about this, because I get this all the time. I see the rules being broken all the time by the likes of Vogue, Rolling Stone, GQ, Vanity Fair. I mean, geez, you are talking about some of the major players in the industry. There's a little bit more leeway there. In other words, the design team at Vogue or Vanity Fair, for instance, has a lot more leeway. Um, you know, since they're probably world class designers and have proven themselves as such several times. So if you see the big guns making mistakes, um, that's fine. It still doesn't make it correct. I see mistakes being made all the time. You have to understand a lot of those mistakes are due to, um, budget constraints. So in other words, I take one of my designers. If I have a low budget, um, project, Todd, I'm going to take one of my designers. I'm going to say, look, get it out. Okay. Don't worry about rags. Don't worry about, just get it out because that's what the client wants. Okay. That's understood. But when you have a client like when you have a bigger client, you've got to really, really stack up your P's and Q's and count them as such. So, okay, enough on that. I'm enough preaching. So let's talk about typography. Let's come on over here. Let's take a look at. I think I thought I downloaded this. Yes, I did. Here's the cover. Okay, so, typographically, you have what's going on is you have just too many visual cues going on. It's just so difficult because your eye is bouncing around the page so much so that I mean, there's no way for anybody to be able to pick that out of um, this I'm sorry, this design layout. It's just too busy. Um, Typographically, I think that this is good. This is set up very, very nicely. I think you didn't have to do anything funky to draw attention to the type. I think you did some, there's some really good ideas here for alignment and for um, hierarchy. So good job there. This kind of seems to be, let me just do something real quick. Okay, this kind of seems to be just not aligning with anything, as is the raspberries not aligning with anything. So really, in typography, there's a lot of people that will say this should be a rule, not a general rule of thumb, that everything should align with something. For example, let's pull a quick guide down here to the bottom of that computer right there, and we can see that horizontally it doesn't align with anything either. So that's why this guy looks like he's just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere, basically, because he is. Okay, this is good, and this is good. I think there's too much competition between TechNow and Raspberry. Basically, Raspberry's taken up a larger space than TechNow, so a little hierarchy issues there. This looks good. Again, a lot of visual stops here. Just too many things, too many gradients, and these lines, these kind of rules, and these kind of stripes with the vertical and horizontal lines. I just think that there's too many visual stops. I think that this doesn't really flow through as it should and as it would had it been presented on a white background with just information typographically. And then let's move over here. I mean, you've handled the typography very well. There's no question about that. I'm not contending that whatsoever. There are some mistakes on this spread, though. You've got a couple of things here. Your folios should be symmetrical on each side. So in other words, if this is on one side, it's usually on the other. So typically you'll have the volume number and such, volume number, issue number, whatever, maybe even a website. And then it would be in reverse here, so they're symmetrical. Okay, you've got the justify typeset, but the settings are still showing a lot of these really weird. Okay, look how tight that is packed right there, those two lines, and then compare that to this line right here. Look how loose that line is. The word spacing. Look at that, how that's all spaced like that. There's a big space between system and comms, okay? And then let's go to another line, let's say over here, where all the letters are basically touching each other. So don't forget those justified type settings I left in the course announcements. Real quick, you have basically, there's no alignment here vertical, because this should all align. This should align with something. Okay, this starts up here, but this starts down here. This starts up here, this starts down here. And conversely, this ends up here and this ends down here. Okay, you've got these. This is called an orphan, and basically it means that you don't want to start a paragraph. I'm sorry, a text column with a partial line. Okay, technically this is 1, 2. Because those lines are just dangling in the middle of nowhere all by themselves. Okay, this one is too. Okay, so just basic stuff. I think your margins are too close to the side of your page. I think your margins are too close to the bottom of your page and to the top of your page as well. And then this right here looks like it's been, I don't know if it's been manipulated, but it's like really on a italic. I don't know if that's been oh, you know what? I know exactly what it is. This is center justified. Okay, that's why you have these huge spaces right here. So that definitely needs to be addressed. Okay, other than that, good job. Good job typographically. I mean, you're right in there, just a couple of little things here and there, and I think you've done a great job. I think if we take a look at some of the first work and then take a look at some of the last work, I think it's really apparent that you've learned, and I'm very glad about that. You've been a great student. I've really enjoyed having you in class, and I hope to see you again. Okay, thanks, man.